Harold stopped giving Marge money. He started giving the small fortune he'd saved, around $1 million, to friends and neighbors.
I don't want to give her any money because that's just a tool to make her commit more crimes. I don't have a whole lot to do. And if I ain't helping somebody, then I don't know what to do.
Do you ever think about good times that you had with Marjorie, back when she was a young girl? And were you proud of her growing up because she was an A student?
Oh, sure, I was proud of her, but if she told me something, I couldn't very well believe her anyway because she was a good liar. She'd come around if she wanted something. And that's all. And she didn't know the meaning of love.
How small this one is, holy cow. Look at that. Marge was now obsessed with Ken Barnes. In almost every letter and phone call, she tried to convince me that he was lying about her. And now she had a new theory as to who masterminded the heist.
I didn't know this, but he had gone in the conspiracy with Ken Mars to do this crime.
You think Barnes and Rothstein were the masterminds of the pizza bombing case?
Yes. When you yes, of course I think that Bill Rothstein has much more intelligence than Ken Mars. I could see it coming that I was going to get framed, and I was scared.
Hirap talaga kapag parehong matalino yung isang.
Marjorie, you say that you're innocent and you're being framed. Who's framing you?
Myself, Jerry, working with her lawyer, decided to go on a vehicle ride for her to explain the activities and her whereabouts on the day of the volleyball.
Marjorie, what about Ken Barnes? Are you worried that he's going to rat you out?
Why did you kill Jim Roden? Was it to silence him in the Wells case? Were you the mastermind behind this Brian Wells case?
I wasn't even involved.
You weren't involved? You didn't know what was going to happen?
I did nothing.
You didn't do the collarbone?
I didn't.
Who's framing you?
Was Bill Rothstein the mastermind?
Bill Rothstein and the government framed me, okay? And the rest of these lying, perjuring witnesses.
Rothstein's dead. He can't.
There's no physical evidence.
On that day, she was just, I think, glad to be out of prison.
Said Marge would like something to eat. Yeah, let's get something at the country fair here. So we stopped. Marjorie asked for some pretzels. So I went in, grabbed a bag of pretzel rods, a couple Diet Cokes, and we sat in the back. And we're eating pretzel rods, drinking Diet Cokes while we're driving around looking at locations. And it was almost like you had, just your family member that you're taking around for a ride.
She divulged that Mr. Rothstein had requested 2 kitchen timers from her. And that was significant because up to that point, the media, of course, had a lot of information, released a lot of information on this case. But they did not know and did not release the fact there were 2 timers in this device. When she said Mr. Rothstein wanted 2 and she provided 2, that was a significant piece of information.
We sat there for a second. She said, that's it.
That's it.
I put my head in the lion's mouth and I'm done.
That's what and she stopped interviewing at that point.
Come on. I didn't do that. You know I'm not going to blow a whistle on myself, right? I'm not one of these guys that likes to say, oh yes, I'm a serial killer. I'll show you some more bodies I didn't claim, crimes I didn't do. Listen to this one. I know the lady.
When I asked Marge to prove to me she wasn't part of the heist, she said it was obvious. She didn't need to rob a bank. She had plenty of money. She was always talking about how much money she had. And she did, from her parents, lawsuits, and government aid. But I found out from her, actually, that in 2003, she and Ken Barnes had a huge fight about money she owed him. She refused to pay. So Ken told some friends to rob her. Marge reported that over $100,000 had been stolen from her house. But no one was ever prosecuted. despite the fact that Ken eventually confessed.
Ken Barnes got away with that too. This guy is somebody. Now, how the hell are you going to tell me he is credible?
Probably the biggest break in this case was Marjorie and Ken still talking. We were dealing with Marge or we were dealing with Ken. Neither one of them had connection with each other. So one didn't know what the other one said. A line you hear a lot of times, the first pig or the first animal to the trough eats the best. The first one to the trough was Ken Barnes, who gave up information on what happened at the tire site.
He provided a confession that day, which really turned the case that day. Turned it, made a 180. Yeah, he confessed to knowing the whole scheme.
Siya yung panglima, yung pang-anim.
She said to me, "Here comes Brian," that's what he said. And then she said, "Here comes Rothstein." And I seen his car moving down the street. As she was looking down there, she goes, looks like the victims robbed the bank.
When you were watching across the street, did you know that Brian Wilson had died?
No clue.
Did you make a thought?
When Ken Barnes confessed, it was the breakthrough investigators had been hoping for. Finally, an insider could tell them not only what happened to Brian at the tower site, but also if Brian was actually in on the heist.
We learned through interviews with Mr. Barnes that the day before the bank robbery, there was a pre-robbery meeting at Mr. Rothstein's house to discuss roles each person would play. We asked him about that meeting, if he was present. He described it. He said, of course, Mr. Rothstein, Marjorie Beale, and then Mr. Stockman. Bob Panetti was present. And Brian Wells, he was there.
Ay, magkakasabot pala talaga sila lahat.
The FBI didn't record Ken Barnes' confession. It was policy at the time. They believed a camera changes the interview dynamic.
Anim.
So I reached out to Ken,
Oo,
and he had no
magkakasabot
problem
sila.
telling me exactly what he told
Na hindi
investigators.
nagsabihan, parang ano,
Ken said his role in the
magagaling
heist was to be a
talaga.
lookout, and that Marge came to
Ang
his
tagal,
house shortly
grabe,
before
2
noon
years.
on August 28, 2003.
She picked me up. I said, "What's going on?" She said, "Well, today's the day. Bank robbery." I goes, "Oh." I said to her, because Jim was supposed to grab me a quick car. I said, "Where's Jim?" She goes, "Oh, he's dead." She said, "I think he's sick with the flu." Then we went up to, like I say, to the Shell station. Bill Gates made the pizza call. We went from there up to his house. And so we was up there to his tower site with Rusty waiting while Brian came up. Brian delivered the pizza. He got out of the car, and Bill's car was in front of her car. And so he put it up on the hood, or on the trunk rather. And Brian was sitting there waiting to get paid for the pizza. Marge and me and Rothstein were eating pizza. When I stopped to run to the bar before I got back to the building. I don't know, probably within about 3 feet of Brian. And Brian, at that point, looked like he was terrified, like he knew there was something wrong, and started to run. That's when I walked up to him.
Oo, okay, pinilit lang nila si ano.
And that's when Russ said, "Pull that gun and shot in the air." So he wasn't going anywhere. Margie and Rusty grabbed a hold of him and moved down. And they were holding him at Marge and stopped him with the bomb on him. And he said, "I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this." And I don't know at that point he thought it was real or he thought it was fake. time, she said, let them tell us there was some black guy telling you that, put the bomb on you, and she said that way it won't bring any heat back to us. And then they gave him that shotgun. They said, yeah, but you know, we just use this. Went from there back out
Kawawa
in
naman.
the parking lot of the park. Which is across the street now where they go from the bank.
Marjorie D. Armstrong and Ken Barnes sat in a vehicle and observed the bank being robbed through binoculars, and they took turns passing the binoculars to each other.
What we really needed was to see down into the front part of the bank. And she was looking down there, she goes, looks like the bank that's robbed the bank. That's the neat thing. And that's when cops were coming in. And let's get the hell out of here.
From there, they drive south on Peach Street to the Rothstein residence, where they meet up with Bill Rothstein, switch vehicles, and that's when Marjorie D. Armstrong gets back on the highway, I-79, going in the wrong direction. We believe going back to the McCain Township sign, looking for that last site.
Later on that day, when I was at home watching the TV, and I felt bad because it wasn't supposed to happen. As far as I think it was supposed to be fake. As far as I knew, or anybody else knew, it wasn't supposed to be real. But between Mars and Rothstein, they ended up making it real.
Kawawa naman yung ano. Pero ano, salbahe yung ano. Salbahe yung kasamahan niyang ano, pizza delivery.
Now that investigators had Ken's confession, they
Parang
were headed up to
sinet-up.
Washington State Prison to
Sinet-up si
confront
Brian.
Floyd Stockton, Bill
Yun
Rothstein's
yung
roommate,
namatay,
the
yung
guy who had helped
pinasabog.
plant the bomb around Brian Wells's neck. Stockton, this is video of him from a police interview during the frozen body case, knew he was cornered. But his attorney got him an amazing deal. Immunity in exchange for testifying against Marjorie. Floyd Stockton had been keeping secrets too.
Three and a half years.
He did mention that he may have, at Mr. Rothstein's request, asked him to help out make a couple of the pieces for the collar, but it didn't work out. He didn't do them properly, and Mr. Rothstein then took over. We actually did a reenactment at the scene with Floyd Stockton.
He said Marjorie D. Armstrong was there, and he was ordered by Mr. Rothstein to place the device around the neck of Brian Wells.
When he described approaching Brian with the device, he said he could see the fear in his eyes, and he became a little upset regarding what was about to take place, what he was about to do.
After he put it on his neck, he wanted to get away from there as soon as possible and started walking down that tower site location. Told us that he was serpentining because he thought he was going to be shot in the back. And he even said, you know what? I'm a convicted child abuser. I could get shot back here and no one would even care.
Floyd Stockton should have been charged with something. But if you look at the group as a whole and their roles in this crime, we also agreed that he was less culpable than the others.
Stockton and Ken Barnes had answered a lot of questions, but several mysteries remain. Both men said they did not know who built the bomb in the cane car, who wrote the notes, or who was actually the mastermind.
Who actually put this in motion? Who actually said, hey, listen, let's rob a bank for money? Who said that first, Marjorie or Bill? I don't know. We don't know.
Stockton and Barnes also couldn't tell investigators anything about the involvement of Brian's co-worker, Robert Panetti, who died of an apparent overdose after the heist. Panetti's role was something that would never be cleared up. And oddly, while both men claimed Brian Wells was in on the heist, they couldn't say how or when he was recruited.
They might have been compartmentalized by Bill Rothstein, where he segregated people, so Stockton might not have known what Ken Barnes was to do, but they're all in the conspiracy. I think the whole plan initially started out was a way for them all to make some money. But it developed into more than just making money. It became almost a game to them, a diabolical, maniacal game. But a game where, let's see how we can get away with this.
72%.
We're really smarter than everybody. And we're certainly smarter than law enforcement.
Breaking news tonight in a so-called pizza bomber mystery. Tonight we may finally have the answer to a 4-year-old mystery.
Officials say they'll file bank robbery and other charges today against this woman, Marjorie Deal Armstrong. Authorities will also charge a fishing buddy of hers, Kenneth Barnes, a convicted drug dealer. The mastermind, prosecutors say, was Marjorie Deal Armstrong, who allegedly recruited Kenneth Barnes to kill her father and wanted to pay him with proceeds from the bank robbery.
This is a weird case, is it not?
Larry, this is as bizarre a case as you're going to find. They hardly write them this way in Hollywood.
The purpose of the entire pizza bomber plot? Money. Deal Armstrong needed cash to pay Barnes to kill her father. Bill Rothstein needed the money to settle an estate.
The big question was Wells a victim or participant? Today, a stunning announcement. Prosecutors say he was both.
Our investigation has led to the belief that Brian became involved in a limited role.
Alan, one of the weirder aspects of this is it seems that the victim is being blamed.
In part, that is true, and that is yet another weird aspect of all of this. And the mother, in fact, and the siblings were at the press conference here today. They were actually heckling the U.S. Attorney. I've never seen that in all of my reporting.
It may be that his role transitioned from that of the planning stages to being an unwilling participant in the scheme.
Liar!
Wouldn't that make him a victim?
Yes. Damn right.
No charges will be filed against Brian Wells, the man who died when the bomb went off. Instead, officials say he'll be listed simply as an unindicted co-conspirator. And just how surprising is it that Brian Wells has
Kasi
been
kasama
named
siya
as
sa
an
meeting pala.
accomplice in this whole
Nagkataon
case?
lang.
Well, I think a lot of us were surprised. I mean, for the past 4 years, we have been portraying him as a victim because we thought that he was a victim.
What evidence is there that he was involved?
Mr. Wells was at Mr. Rothstein's house the day before. A witness who was actually driving past Mr. Rothstein's house the day before the robbery. Wells actually pulled out of Mr. Rothstein's driveway, leaving the meeting, and the witness had to slam on his brakes to avoid hitting him.
That witness was very strong and identified Mr. Wells as being the driver of the vehicle he almost hit, leaving that pre-planned meeting.
We stayed silent for 4 years, and now we have prosecutors trying to implicate the murder victim when you have a bomb locked to your neck and federal authorities chop your head off to get the bomb off. There was no way Brian put that on himself. 19 hours after the bomb had gone off, the federal authorities chopped his head off to get that collar off. Brian did not put that collar on himself. I can't imagine that they're trying to get the public to believe this.
The claims that he met with them the day before.
They can't prove that. Have you seen evidence? I have not seen any evidence to suggest he knew these people in any way, other than he might have delivered them a pizza the day before.
Prosecutors were also asked if murder charges will be filed against anyone for the death of Brian Wells, or if the co-conspirators could face the death penalty. We were told because Brian Wells was believed to be in on the heist, those charges cannot be filed.
Under federal law and the circumstances of this case, the death penalty is not available for the conduct that is included in this federal charge.
So what's the feeling of the co-worker?
My reaction was, I can't believe that they're going to try to frame my brother for his own murder.
Do we know who built the collar bomb and the cane?
We have never charged anyone with building the device. It may be that each of the co-conspirators played some role in its design or fabrication, but we don't know the answer to the question.
It's not over yet. We still have one defendant who is awaiting trial, and that's Marjorie Deal.
The press conference may have felt like closure for prosecutors, but for the rest of us, especially Brian's family, there were too many unanswered questions. Plus, a lot of us still weren't convinced Brian was in on the heist.
Pero kasi, si Brian, yung sa record, yung sa video, nang pumasok siya, very calm daw siya eh. Pero kasi sabi ni Ken, ang alam din daw niya, fake yung, yung bomb. Ang alam niya fake, feeling ko alam rin ni Brian fake. Kaya calm siya eh, nung nagra-rubber siya.
Issues that she might have, and always in trial.
Kasi sa video, nataranta lang siya nung tumunog eh. Beep, beep, beep. Napansin niyo nung unang interview eh.
Forensics and DNA and fingerprints, which we didn't have. You always would feel more comfortable taking a plea, which she discussed with her attorney and
Sabi kasi nung unang pulis, sabi, yung pulis ha, hindi FBI, very calm daw talaga si Brian. Na usually hindi daw yung, kung ikaw yung victim, hindi dapat ganun yung ano mo.
Once the spotlight came onto Marge, she was much more erratic with her letters. They went from, normal margins into stuff all over the page. Marge was anxious to get to trial and convince a jury she was being framed. But first she needed to be declared mentally competent. The judge consulted experts to see if Marge could assist in her own defense. Several doctors determined she was too unstable. And then a lawyer who defended Marge the first time she killed her boyfriend, in 1984, was asked what it was like to represent her.
As I think back about defending her, she was my punishment on earth. She could be talking about one thing and then start talking about birds or God knows what, or horoscopes. She had to brush her teeth 32 times a day, not 31, not 33. It's just amazing to me, 4 times I have her committed, and 4 times the mental health system found her to be competent. It was like Jonah being swallowed by the whale, She stayed in the belly for a certain period of days, the whale opened its mouth, the mental health system, boom, out she came. We shouldn't be talking about a collar bomber. We shouldn't be talking about FBI agents and ATF agents. She should have been confined. She was sick. She was disturbed. And anybody that was around her knew that. You have to deal with the disease. And if you have a disease that's never going to get better and your thinking is way off, why jeopardize society by putting the person on trial? Run the risk. They'll be acquitted.
It took several months of medication and psychiatric treatment, but eventually, the judge actually declared Marjorie competent and set a date for what was now being called Erie's trial of the century. Marge told me she was thrilled to get her day in court, and she said that she had even more good news. Apparently Floyd Stockton, who had been given immunity to testify against her, was not going to be at trial after all. He needed heart surgery. That meant one less person to link Marge to the bank heist.
So, it's fantastic. Now we
Marge asked me if I'd come to her trial. She wanted support. I left New York, drove to Erie, walked into the courtroom that first day, sat down. Marge turned around, saw that I was sitting behind the prosecution, and in front of everyone she blurted out, "Hey Trey, what are you doing over there? You're on the wrong side. Get over here." I moved.
I think she's taking a shine to you a little bit. Yeah, I think that was very interesting. I'm very familiar with the case. I was here 7 years ago when the incident happened, and I've been familiar with the case all the way through. And I've seen her on camera, but then to see her in person, just those real dark eyes that just kind of look right through you. I have to admit that a little bit of a chill ran through my blood.
Over the next several days, witnesses who'd seen Marjorie at various heist locations took the stand, as did the inmates who said Marge confessed behind bars. One testified Marjorie admitted all the co-conspirators were afraid of the death penalty and would watch each other's backs.
Marjorie Deal Armstrong's behavior during trial was so interesting to watch because she would act out at certain points but knew just how far to go before she knew she would be admonished by the judge. After the jury would be taken out on a break, the judge would be off of the bench, and it would just be her at her table, prosecution and myself at our table, and she would turn the chair around, swivel the chair, and begin talking to people in the crowd.
Midway through the trial, Jessica Hoopsick, Brian Wells' favorite prostitute, took the stand. I was on the edge of my seat because I'd read in some federal documents that Jessica might have some inside knowledge about the heist. But she was nervous and vague when she answered questions. Jessica did testify that one night, while she was on Ken Barnes' front porch, she overheard a conversation about a bank robbery, and a woman was there. But she didn't know who it was. I noticed Jessica never once looked at Marjorie Deal Armstrong in court. So when Jessica left, I ran after her, asked if she would do an interview for this film. She said yes. We made plans to meet, 6 o'clock, down by the Erie Lakefront Tower. I waited anxiously. An hour went by. Jessica never showed up.
I think that the jurors, for the first time, actually got to see her as a human being rather than this alleged criminal on trial, has allegedly committed all these crimes. When she broke down into tears talking about her childhood and how abusive it was, I think that most of the jurors sympathized with her.
Going into this in the first couple of days of testimony with all the evidence against her, I thought it was going to take almost a miracle to find her not guilty. Now you start thinking maybe she made a little headway with the jury.
With the first couple of government witnesses, I really thought she was toast. Now I think that her testimony is actually helping her, when we all thought in reality that it would hurt her.
Early in the case, I wanted to bring out the lack of a better word, the animal. I wanted to bring out the villain in my illustrations, dark tones, dark eyes, wild hair. After I see her mingling with you and some of the other people and being this charming character, I found myself today starting to soften the likeness that I'm illustrating of her.
Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe and comment. Bye.
Everybody ready?